Hey, I'm Bob and I like to make stuff. Today we're gonna make a skate ramp. Now my kids are still pretty young, but they are starting to get adventurous on their bikes and they're showing some interest in skateboarding, so I thought it was time to build them a small ramp. Obviously the ramp will get bigger as they get bigger, but this one's good for now. All right, let's do it. Almost this entire project was made out of scrap material left over from previous projects. On this 1/2-inch plywood, I started drawing out the profile for the ramp. I knew I wanted the entire box to be 10 inches tall and the ramps on each side to be about 24 inches long. I sketched and measured the overall outline and then drew in where the 2x4s would go for support. These are about every 8 inches on center. The first part that I drew was just a ramp and the box. The second part is going to be a kicker that's separate. It's got basically the same height and the same length as the other ramp, but it has a curve on the top. And to get that curve, I drove in 2 screws and then used a flexible ruler in between them to get a nice smooth curve. You can adjust here to get as much lift as you want on the kicker. Then I had to cut down all the 2x4s. And in this case, there were 16 of them. My ramp is only going to be 18 inches wide, so I don't really need any center support. If you're going to go wider than that, you're probably going to want to build something right down the middle of the ramp just to give it some more support and safety. Once I got all these 2x4s cut, it was time to cut out the side panels. And these stacks of 2x4s are really good for supporting the workpiece while you cut it. This entire project could be completely done with a jigsaw if that's all you have. A lot of people know that I really dislike the jigsaw, and a lot of people tell me that if I bought a better quality one, I would enjoy it more. So I went out today and I bought this one. We're going to try it out and see how it works. My old saw gave me lots of trouble when I tried to cut a really long, nice curve. So this was a big test to see if this one was going to work better for me. I'm just using a standard wood blade here, not even a fine blade, which would give me even more detail control. All right, I'm not sponsored by this brand or anything, but I am happy to say that this cut way better than my old one, so you guys were right. This is not actually that bad of a tool if you get one that works pretty well. That said, I'm not going to use it to cut the rest of these pieces out. The rest of the lines I need to cut are straight, so a circular saw will be the best way to do that. So I cut out the other piece of the side panel and then flipped both of those over and traced them onto the piece of wood. I'm using a Sharpie here because this doesn't need to be super precise and it's just easier to see on camera. I cut out the mirror sides of these pieces and then it was ready to attach all of the 2x4s. The only 2x4s that need to be anywhere special are the ones at the top and the front of the ramp. The one at the front is laid down flat. The one in the back corner actually extends past the plywood a little bit so it'll connect to the other ramp later. I'm not planning on leaving this ramp out where it's going to get wet, so none of this wood is pressure treated and these are just regular drywall screws. It's also really important to pre-drill these holes so you don't split any of the 2x4s or the thin plywood. I'm countersinking them all so all the surfaces are flush. That's really handy as well. Once I finished up the small kicker ramp, I followed the exact same procedure to do the other ramp and box. It's pretty much the same, it's just got more 2x4s. You'll notice that I left a gap in the bottom corner, and that's so I can screw into the kicker. Once I had these screwed together, I needed to cover the whole thing. I set the flexible ruler on the ground and then measured up to the top of the ramp. This tells me how long the piece of wood needs to be. From there, I just measured it out on the rest of the scrap plywood and cut out a piece to fit. And this is why you use 1/2-inch or thinner plywood. I put all my weight on this to bend it into the curve and then drove in screws to the 2x4s. This holds it in place just fine. The other side was basically the same, except there was no curve, so the wood was a little bit shorter. But I cut it to fit and screwed it on the same way. The top of the kicker had a small area that needed to be covered with plywood, so I cut a strip to fit it in there and screwed it on. I wanted this piece to move with the kicker if I took them apart. Then I just filled in the gap on the top of the box with some other scraps. You could leave the entire ramp as plywood and it would skate just fine, but most good skate ramps are covered in masonite. This is a really thin and slick hardboard. This stuff comes in a 4x8 sheet, so I had them cut it down to strips at the store to easily get it home. At home, I just cut it down to sizes to fit on all the different surfaces. I did my best to only drive in screws on the edges and not in the middle of the surface. This is just to keep the skatable surface as slick and smooth as possible. The ramp wasn't heavy, but there was no good way to lift it, so I cut a little handhold in the bottom of it with my new jigsaw and then spray painted both sides of this black. On the side opposite of the handle that I cut, I screwed on 4 spinning casters. This makes it really easy to move around and get it out to the street easily. And of course, I had to tag it. I figured I'd test it out to make sure it was safe for the kids, so I got it my bike and my skateboard, even though honestly I'm not much of a skater. It works fine. Now if you're watching this video the day that it comes out, you have 10 days to get one of these exclusive t-shirts. These are going up for sale right now on Teespring. I'll have a link down in the description and a card and on the end screen. You can get this design in orange, red, or black, short sleeve, long sleeve, or a hoodie, and only for 10 days. So if you want one of these, be sure to go get it before they are gone. I hope you like this video. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. I've got lots of other projects that you might be interested in, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.